Hello, Internet. We're back. So, I don't want to apologize because I'm not doing anything wrong, but if the new kind of word vomitous 19-minute lecture type videos that I've been doing recently are not your thing and you would prefer condensed YouTube nuggets, I don't have any condensed YouTube nuggets. I am still working through this material. I am teaching it to clients and they're helping me poke holes in it and figure out what doesn't work. And I'm still working on it in my throw. So I don't have it figured out yet. I can't do 5-minute little videos of it. So if this format is challenging for people or not useful, I apologize. But this is where we're at. And I want to get this stuff up so that people can help me work through it. And so that the ideas can be out there. So that said, kind of trying to condense and refine the last 3 or 4 videos that I've done and add a couple of new parts. So the new parts are I got a chance to chat on Facebook Messenger with Seabass a little bit, and he is concerned that I'm telling people to hyperextend their front knee. I do not want anyone to hyperextend their front knee, but I think we can get closer to a fully straightened knee and a fully engaged front leg. And to make that point, I will reiterate something that I've mentioned before. I spent about 6 months going to the park throwing 3 or 4 times a week for a good chunk of time, trying to learn how to brace, and I was wasting my time, completely wasting my time. How much you brace, how aggressive your front leg is in terms of being active and straightening the leg, that is a choose your own adventure thing. If you're 68, you're probably not going to do a whole lot of that. If you're 23, you can probably do as much as you want, and as long as you're not totally stupid, you'll be pretty safe. So I want everyone to be safe first, so don't hyperextend your knee. And second of all, I want people to get to their full potential and be able to realize as much of a active brace as they can safely and as they want to. So what I was doing is I was planting open and not making my leg active. I was not straightening my leg. I knew how Drew Gibson threw, right? Where he plants here, gets his leg entirely straight, and then ends up pivoting with his hips back behind his front foot and his torso leaning forward a little bit. And he's just like here, releasing here. And you can see that there's containment in the hips, and that's accelerating the arm forward. I had no idea how to get to that. This drill and this progression is the best way I am aware of to get there. And a lot of my understanding of this came from working with Brian Weissman. So, what's the point? The point of the drill is 1, to keep your knee safe, and 2, to make your front leg active. And a big thing that I feel like maybe I made it clear in the last video, but it needs to be stressed because this is what people mess up, is that in order for your knee to be safe, there needs to not be rotation in your leg. In order for your throw to be good, there needs to not be rotation in your leg. That's not true, but in order for your throw to be optimized, there needs to not be rotation in your leg. So when a beginner throws, they have rotation in their leg, right? My axis of rotation for this kind of throw is from the ground through the top of my head, and I rotate around that point. That's fine for not elite distance, but you're never going to get to elite distance there unless you're Brody, and that's all timing and not brace, right? It works. It's not easily reproducible. I think this is a lot more easier to reproduce. This being an active front leg and getting your rear leg to balance your energy. There's energy here. You want the same amount of energy roughly going here. And it doesn't have to be active. So I'll go over the things that people have consistently screwed up so far too. And part of that's probably because I'm not coaching it right. So in the last video I cued to get your knee and your hip back. Your knee will move back, but if you cue move your knee back, you'll, ow. Like I've seen a lot of people do that, where they're like throwing the knee back. We don't care about the knee, right? We care about the hip. The knee's job is not to move on its own. The knee's job is to move the hip. So hyperextension is only going to come into play when you are slamming the knee past its range of motion, right? So that is not the goal at all. The goal is to act on the hip. And honestly, the way that we do the drill here is probably going to put more stress on the knee than actually throwing. That could be totally wrong, but that's kind of my impression. Because when you're actually throwing, when you actually have a load on this front leg, a dynamic load, you can't you can't leg press and resist it enough to hyperextend your front knee. I have seen a couple people on Facebook throw where they're getting into a hyperextension of the knee, and that's more a hypermobility thing, I think, than an overactivation thing. Anyways, just be aware of that. The goal is not to slam your knee into its maximum extension or hyperextension. It doesn't even have to get all the way to straight, but the point of this drill is to empower you to be able to use your quad to straighten your front leg more than you thought was safe by virtue of having figured out what was safe in the context of this drill, where it's easier to play around with it without getting hurt. So that's that part. Look at my notes. Another way to think about that is you don't want the force to be in the knee. I don't want to be sending this that way. I want the force to be in the hip. It's like I'm hip checking someone behind me. So I'm coming into my walk up, I'm here, and then I'm sending my hip that way, boom, to hit someone, right? The same ideas are in Seabass's butt wipe drill. He's talking about wiping this cheek on a wall as you coil, and then as this leg gets active, you're wiping this cheek the other way. So you're actually getting, that's the same way I think about rotation. He's just tracking it by how your butt is interacting with the wall. It's kind of hard to get from that video, but I think that's what he's going for. So another thing that people have asked a lot of questions about is if my final form is here in Drew Gibson mode, right? This foot floating in the air, this aggressively braced, this active, the hips behind the foot. Why in the heck are we starting statically balanced on top of your front foot, right? Doesn't this imply that we want the whole throw to happen there? No, it does not. This is a drill. It is an isolation of one part of the throw. This movement is so complex, you cannot possibly build the whole thing at once. I can't take a beginner, give them a 2-hour lecture on, okay, you want this out in, out loading thing, you need your grip to be like this, you need to get a little bit of nose down on the release somehow, you need your head to stay here, you need your leg to go behind you, you need your brace to be here, you need to have window and offset. Like, no, it's too much. You have to learn one thing at a time. So the thing we're learning here is what it feels like to organize this part of your body from the pelvis up, not including the hip joints. How to organize that to move around a leg that is static and not moving. I'll say that again. How to organize the upper body from the pelvis up and teach it how to move around a static front leg. So this is our frame of reference for this drill. I've set a 55-gallon drum full of concrete, and I have put my leg in it, and my leg is not going to move, right? I can't do this. I can't do this. Nothing. This is static. Absolutely static. That's the point of the drill. So my hip socket will drift this way a little bit to help me balance. Pretend it doesn't do that. Right? It's going to, but that's not important. What's important is how I lift this hip and coil my shoulders, and then how I drop this hip and how that starts to uncoil my shoulders, and then I can add to the shoulder coil with a spine twist and put some arm on top of it. The pelvis moving is the engine of the throw. That's what I knew intuitively when I named the channel, right? That's the same way a trebuchet works. There's a big old weight and it drops, and that's the power source for the arm swinging. Same concept here. In this isolation, it's very easy to drop this hip and have it create power, right? in the context of a full throw, it's not easy. It's very, very, very challenging. So let's get into a little bit of what we need for that to work, and what people screw up. So what people screw up in the context of this drill is they bend the knee all the time. Everyone does it. I did it, and Brian like corrected me like the first 5 times I did it. He was like, "You moved your knee. You moved your knee. You moved your knee." And then the 5th time I was like, "Crap, I moved my knee. Sorry." But it took someone with that discerning of an eye to look at my form and say, "No, your brace is garbage." 5 times in a row before I was like, "Oh, okay, you're right. I know that. I just wasn't doing anything about it." So that's the beauty of this drill, is when you can actually get that leg still, like it's actually set in concrete, and organize everything around that, then you start to get the timing right. So if your front knee is mush, you're never going to get the timing right ever. I mean, you can get it functional, like tons of players throw pretty well with a mushy front knee, but you're not ever going to get to optimized form where you can really press into that leg and have it accelerate the disc. So don't bend your knee, like actually super don't bend your knee. The second thing this drill is teaching you is how to get, not how to get into, but how to be in this position where your counterweight rear leg is behind you towards your heel side. So sometimes I use north, south, east, and west to describe directions on the T-pad. I'm going to try to stop doing that. I'm going to try to use heel side and toe side because it works, and it works. It's not a handed thing. I'll still use target word and south. I think south makes sense. Like south is behind you. Just got to stick with that one. It's not consistent, but I think that'll be more intuitive. Like east and west is like people go, what? You know, so I'll try to stop doing that. Show counterweight to the heel side. Super important, right? Here, my leg is on my axis of rotation. I can rotate quickly. If I put my leg south, now I'm spinning out all of a sudden. Or at best, I'm spinning out. At worst, I have an anchor here, and my spin out is going to be slowed down and then come around late. So I'm not, like you see people throw a lot where they go bam, boom, and have this giant round kick over to their toe side. That's not good because the force is being dissipated here and here. We don't want the force in 2 places. We want the force in 1 place. We want it in the round thing we're trying to throw. So you want all the force to really go boom and accelerate to this 1 point. Watch Wiggins throw. He's great at that. Like he can stop here and get all the force boom to go into the hand before the shoulders open too much. Okay, so that's most of my notes. What else were we going to do? We're going to do one other thing that I totally forget. So no rotation in the knee, no rotation in the leg. Make sure you're getting your hip back, not your knee back. Static versus dynamic. This is static. We're doing a static drill that is an isolation of moving the body around a static front knee. Okay, so the part of that we didn't cover is this orientation is a placeholder for Drew Gibson's orientation. As his foot starts to pivot, which is right when the disc hits, he ends up in this position. So this, if this is my front leg in concrete, after I've actively accelerated the hip and cleared the hip to the heel side, then I can do the drill here too, right? So I can do it here statically, and then I can mimic doing it dynamically by artificially putting my hips behind my brace and then doing the same thing here. So notice how the repositioning of the rear foot changes a little bit. So I'm going to go from the ball of my foot with the toes facing toe side to the toes facing towards my plant foot. So this leg is internally rotating, and the weight of this leg is moving targetward and towards the heel side a little bit. All right, so 2 different versions of this. I can do it targetward with a targetward offset, and I can do it with a toe side offset. So if I'm throwing this way, doing it with a targetward offset would just be here. So the point is my foot is closer to the target than my hips. This is working on target side containment, right? So I don't want to end up here where I don't have any containment. I want the throw, the hit to happen here. So this is another step in the progression. Here, I'm learning how to organize my body around the front leg, with the front leg in a very easy to maintain position. And then I'm putting that front leg into a slightly more realistic, in one frame of reference position, and that my hips are behind my foot. And getting an approximation of how to organize my body around that leg. Then another version, I can go toe side. So I can take my plant from out here, move my plant here towards the toe side. Remember to angle the toe back relatively aggressively. Now I'm gonna start here, but I'm gonna move my weight south to where I have some north to south offset to where I can reposition. Now I'm keeping my hips further heel side of my plant. My plant is toe side, my hips are heel side. And I can do the drill again. Again, being aware of this positioning. And so I don't want this where I'm just moving my arm, right? I want to really feel how my hips can generate the power. So I'm going to shift my hips back this way and then forward this way. Not onto my plant foot, because that's the whole point, is I want my hips on this rail, my foot on that rail. So it's going to look something like this. Kind of. This one's hard because you don't have, right? You want to be here, which we'll get to next. So I'm here, just leaving this out in front. Get some idea of balance there. And then the final variant of this step of the progression is not putting my plant targetward, not putting my plant toe side, but splitting those. So I'm going to step out on a 45, keep my toe a little bit back, 20-30 degrees. Now I'm going to think about shifting my weight from here, kind of sort of over the back foot, to here, not at all over the front foot, but more in line with the front foot. But I don't want, I don't want to end up here, right? I want to just move towards that, but keep some forward containment and keep some lateral containment. Lateral, toe side, whatever. What are words anyways? So now I'm on this 45, and I'm going to do the same thing. And then you can try stepping into it a little bit, and now you really have something that's a little bit closer to a dynamic throw, right? So you can be here, step in, and hopefully not end up here where I'm ending up, end up a little bit hips behind your front leg. So I think that's kind of a good way to start progressing this out of static mode and into a more dynamic mode. You can then try the whole thing with a full abbreviated walk up, right? Don't go fast at first. But something like that is what you want. Where you're ending up in this T-pose on a tilted axis. So one other drill that can kind of help you get there is just step into a lunge where your knee is down, and then come halfway out of that and then throw from here. So from this half lunge, you're going to coil and extend and then throw. And you want to end up in that same T-pose. So we've straightened the front leg, we've straightened the rear leg, we've lengthened the spine hopefully, and we're in T. So why would we do that? Why would we go here from both knees bent to both knees straight? Simply put, because that's what Wiggins does. He comes into his brace, lets his front leg load a little bit. He's a monster, so he just bends a little bit and then blasts out of it. But there is a bend in the front knee. And as his back foot de-weights, he does drop his knee. He drops into a bent position, and then he straightens it, boom, and it his laces like kick the ground. Look at the distance competition footage. When he's doing 360s, he comes around, plants this foot, de-weights, bends, and then like after his hit, so he goes hit, and then this shockwave comes down and he kicks ground with the top of his foot with his laces. Go check that out. So that's what I got for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Shameless self-promotion stuff. Go check out Upper Park Disc Golf. They have really good gear. I really like their bags. And you can get 15% off if you use my discount code. So go check them out. And also go hit up the Patreon. There are a lot of those $20 quick form check spots open. Personally, I think it's kind of cool that people aren't jumping on those because more of the $50 spots are filled up. At the $50 tier, I can give you more of my time. There's spots open there too. So if you want coaching, get on there. Yeah, do it. It's good. I had a lot of fun working with folks on there, and the folks on there are the ones that are helping me figure this stuff out. So thank you to you guys. Yeah, that's all. Have a good one, Internet.